simple English, which I find is a
I
much
can write
better
to
way to
you.
communicate with
But
people.
then you have it.
And let me explain also for those that were here last time, I'm multi-degree. Archaeology is where I come from in this area, in this particular field, as opposed to a MUFON or a ufologist or whatever. I come from a very pure scientific area. But my mind has now been expanded a lot. The more we find out, the more we don't have answers for. And some very unique things have happened in the past 20, 25 years that has rattled a lot of people's cages in the scientific community. And I'm going to be bringing up these points, and I'm going to be tying some things together for you today, more so than I did last time. I'm going to be pulling from all different areas. What I spoke about last time, I'm not sure, are the four that weren't here last time, are you familiar with the star trial at all? One is. Two are not. Are you? And then you do not know about the gods of Cholula then either. In a very brief time period, I'm going to do something similar to what I did last time. And I'm going to give you a timeline, because a lot of people get goofed up on timelines. Past, present, somewhere right in the middle. We talk about BC, AD, what are we talking about? When you think of BC going this way, and some people say, oh, it's before Christ, and this is Anno Domini, and whatever. Think of it as there's a center line down the middle. Back here, you're going farther back, BC in time. From the center line, you're coming forward in time this way. But the dating is sort of strange. Back here, we're going into the depth of time and saying, like, Egypt. Everybody's familiar with Tut. It's very simple. This is Akhenaten. This is the pharaoh that was monotheistic, believed in one God, period. He caused all kinds of problems back then. He's neat as he can be. But in his timeline, if you drop back, Amenophis or Akhenaten, right, in Hotep, who this person is, in Tel El Amarna in Egypt, would drop back to the 18th dynasty, which was my particular bag for a long time, 18th dynasty Egypt. You're familiar with a lot of people that appear back in that. Tut followed him. Nefertiti, the bust, that gorgeous face and bust. Hatshepsut, who was one of my favorites because she was a female, and she was a pharaoh and ruled as pharaoh, and then disappeared. They've never found her stuff, only the things that she's done. But this 18th dynasty, that's like from 1379 to 1362 BC. As you go this way, back in time, the bigger the numbers, the farther back it goes. As you come creeping forward, say it's 4800 BC, and then 2500 BC, and then 1000, and then 900, and boom, then you finally get to the center line. Now you're sneaking the other way. The areas that we're going to be talking about mostly are central Mesoamerica. Today I'm going to be bringing in our Southwestern, our Indians, petroglyphs and all kinds of things. And classic Mesoamerica, and when I say Mesoamerica, I'm speaking about Mexico, Central America, South America. But I tend to pull it farther. I stretch it like taffy, and I bring it up into our Southwest because it's truly all interconnected. And I'm going to try to do that for you today. Classic Mesoamerica. I mean, everybody has a classic period. Rome had a classic period, and England had the flowering when things just went fantastically. Classic Mesoamerica is 200, here's the center line, and you start with 0, and then you start coming higher this way. So it works 200 AD, what you think of as AD, to 900 AD is the perfect classic period for Mesoamerica, when wonderful, amazing things happened down there. Out of nowhere came mathematics and astronomy and medicine and all kinds of things just took off. Amazing things. They were making quantum leaps, more so than what we've done from 1900 to right now, in 2003. Masterful things. Architecture, balance, you name it, it flowered in that period of time. And all of a sudden something happened and it tapered off. It fizzled out. And people tend to think that in Mesoamerica, the areas that we're talking about, that there really wasn't anything else going on in the rest of the world at that time. All kinds of stuff was going on. People don't tend to think, well, gee, the Romans were doing this what were the Mesoamericans doing? Or the Egyptians were doing this, what were the Mesoamericans doing? In a nutshell, the Mesoamerican culture that you think of as the pyramids, and people think of Montezuma, and he was way up there, way past, just before the Spanish came in, and the Spanish came in. They were creating and doing things that what you would think of as the European Caucasians were running around with pelt furs on them and chasing boar down in the woods. These people were already a massively advanced civilization when the majority of, say, our ancestors were running around sort of, not like cavemen, they weren't Neanderthals, but they weren't as organized, they did not have culture, they did not have the things that these people did. And where did they come from? And why in a short period of time? And then what happened to make it fall away? What the heck happened? And you will find, as Michael was saying, pyramid cults all over the world. I'm coming from an archaeological standpoint. They are all over the world. The thing that I have found out, and I have been into this since I've been 8 years old, I've been translating hieroglyphics and Egyptian hieroglyphics since I've been 8. It's just a natural thing to me. Don't ask me why. It's just always been, some kids like Dow, some kids like soccer. I was an Olympic swimmer, but this was my thing. Archaeology, paleontology, but especially that, 18th dynasty Egypt. Then it expanded, and the Mesoamerican thing came in, and it really started going. Is everybody familiar with some of the groups and the cultures in the Mesoamerican area? Aztec, Mayan, Olmec, Zapotec, all of these different people. Then you sneak down, you come down from Mexico, and you get to the little edge, and then you start hitting South America. And now you've got Inca and everybody else that's down there, Chile. Okay, these people had a language, a multi-language, a very refined language, more so than English. English is pretty basic. You have the word the, just the, T-H-E, the. If you go to Spanish, it depends whether it's masculine or feminine. You've got los and las. These people took it to a higher infinity. The intonation, the way it was spoken, like Vietnamese, if it raised, or if it lowered, or if it stayed even, changed the word. The same word, heightened can be one thing, even is another, dropped is another. And very much like Vietnamese, the word ba, which can be ba, be Mrs. Mountain. I mean, it's a lyrical language. It's not guttural like you would think of as German or Dutch. Dutch is a very down in here language. It's a hard one to get around. Very, very lyrical, very floaty. They had it a written form in codices. In Egyptian, there were two forms of writing. One is hieroglyphic, which you're used to seeing all the little squiggles in the Ankh and stuff, and then there's Hieratic. It was a written form, okay, a literally written form. Central America, the Mesoamericas, had that too. They had codices. What codices are, you're familiar with Egyptian papyrus or papyrus. It's pronounced both ways. Either way is correct. They made paper, and they had scribes who had a particular job in that society, and they wrote everything down. The king wanted something, a letter sent to somebody, the scribe came in. It was like a boss and a secretary. Dear Mr. Smith, I'm selling you 22 light bulbs at so much a carton. And the secretary's writing it out, and the scribe did very similar things. Well, they had these in Mesoamerica too, and they wrote two ways. Then there was a refined area. There was an artisan that didn't just do the writing. He did what we would think of as the pictographs, the hieroglyphics, the drawings of the people that you're most, how should I say it? You know what I'm talking about, like the faces or whatever. And in like the Mesoamerican calendar, there were so many months and so many days. It was Batantun, and they had names for them, and they understood them because they were born speaking them. It took us a long time to figure out what was going on, and that this was January and this was February, because what we tend to do is put things into our perspective so we can understand them. Because once you can do that, then you can get a grip on it. If you see a picture of a jaguar, and his name is Schmuzelberry, let's just say, you're going to think it's a jaguar, but what's Schmuzelberry? Well, Schmuzelberry might be the month of March. And I'm just making up a name, so it sounds silly because I'm doing that on purpose. It's hard to lock onto. But once you get it, then you can start translating things. And they had learned a long time ago the number system was very simple in the Mesoamericans. A dot was 1, and a bar was 5. So they could count to any amounts that they wanted to. You know, if you wanted to do the number 9, you'd have 4 dots underneath with a bar, 9. 2 bars, 10. 3 dots, 3. Pretty simple. They had the concept of 0 though as well, which is an interesting thing. Not shown, but it's like the voice raising and lowering. Same similar type of thing. Okay, well, here they are. They have all these papers. The scribes are writing out all this stuff, and they would roll them. And then they decided they found a better way. Egyptians rolled the homemade paper like a scroll, tied them off, and threw them in like little slots, like a library in Alexandria. Think, you know, remember the cubby holes you had as children in kindergarten? Everybody had their little cubby, and everything went in that cubby. The library in Alexandria was set up like that. There were cubbies. And all these scrolls were in the cubbies. And you went and pulled out a scroll and unread, you read it, and fine. Mesoamerica took it a different way. The Orientals had done a similar. They folded it. Remember making accordions as kids and little paper fans, and you folded them back and forth, and it made out a fan? They folded them back and forth so that they could open it up like a book and read. So now they've got a written form, and they've got a very artistic form. 2 different kinds of scribes, writing, art. Both work the same way. Now the art got even hairier, because not only did they illustrate, what would you think of as black and white? Color, just like the intonation. Color changed the word. So you could have a picture of a jaguar. In blue, meant one thing. Red, another. Yellow, another. And when you go back and start excavating, if the chroma colors are gone, or if there's a tiny fleck, tiny little fleck, you can lock on to what that is. Otherwise, it's up to the person that's doing it to try to get an interpretation of it. Very simple. So we've got a very massively advanced civilization, way the heck of what was normally running around in Europe at that time, with all kinds of fantastic things. But they also had another form. They had an oral form. And it was sort of like the book 1010, I mentioned this last time, about every person became a book. When books were burned and people couldn't have them, Fahrenheit, whatever it is, they did a very similar thing. Their legends were oral as well. And there was a person in each village and whatever that memorized all of the very important things and passed them on. They were brought down. Now, and this is where it gets a little hairy again. If you're a scribe and you're writing things out, and you know this too, if you were taking notes in college, and your professor's up there blabbing forever like what I'm doing, and you're writing it down, and you have your own form of sort of shorthand, and you could change it slightly, scribes tended to do that. Egyptian scribes tended to do that. So did scribes throughout history. They took artistic license, and they could change things a teeny bit. It wasn't exactly word for word. Pharaoh might have said, you know, the king of Ethiopia owes me 42 bales of hay, and blah, blah, blah. And the scribe is getting bored out of his brains, and he's popping this stuff down, and he might change it. The essence will be there. You owe my Pharaoh 42 bales of grain, but he's changed it around slightly. So sometimes slight wording changes can change a whole bunch of things around. This happened in Mesoamerica too. When the Spaniards came in, if they had not burned all the codices, think of the folded scrolls, we would have had a massive handle on what had been going on. But they considered them heretics. They considered them pagans. They decided that the only way that they could control them, you've heard of the old thing, keep them barefoot and pregnant. Don't educate them, right? If you want to keep people down, don't educate them. Take their education away, take their legends away, take their laws away, break the family unit down, and you got them. Well, that's what they did. They came in, and every bit, it's much easier to burn up a bunch of paper than it is to go around whacking down things that's already carved into stone. They figured that. And they didn't know about a lot of it. Forget that. They got to the priests, they got to the written records, and they destroyed as many as they could. Some have survived. that's where all the neat stuff is starting to come in. Why the paper hasn't disintegrated in this period of time, 200 up to now, we don't know. But what do they use? Now with modern science, we're able to get analysis and all kinds of things to see what they coated it with. Honey turned out to be one of the things. Amazing, huh? Honey, that we know of today. Honey. Now, we're going to pop into, for the people that weren't here last time, real quick. We're going to drop into Mesoamerica. We're going to go back to 20s or 40s. A family from Texas who were of Mexican ancestry went down to visit relatives. And with them, they took their children, 4, 10 up into young teenagers. And they went to visit the relatives, as everybody does. You know, you go and you visit the relatives and the whole bit. Well, when they went down to Mexico, it was in Chihuahua, Mexico. Chihuahua's not that far across the border and down. It's northern Mexico. And in that area, they had a lot of silver mines. And at the time, the silver mines that were there were defunct. They used to supply a lot of the silver to Tasco, which was the silver capital. But they were boarded up like our mines in the Old West, and they said, don't go there. The main thing they told these kids is, look, you can do whatever you want, but the one thing you're not going to do is go into those old silver mines, because they're deadly. You know, you could get hurt, we catch you, we're going to spank you, whatever. Well, what do you think the kids did? They went into the silver mines, of course. And what they did is they discovered, and I went over this very quickly last time, but I'm going to go into a little more depth. They found basically an area that had been excavated way, 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 way back, that had been sealed off. No one knew it was there in modern times. The kids found it. And part of the stuff crumbled in, and they went into this very back chamber. And in the back chamber, they found a burial. And they found a burial because part of it was sticking up out of the soil. And what was buried back there was what we would think of as a normal-sized human skeleton, holding on to a very small little skeleton, like a little person, perhaps a child. Normal human skeleton looked like any skeleton you see anywhere. The little person didn't. It was very, very strange. And the kids knew it was strange. I'll cut to the chase. The parents got involved in it after the kids got whooped royally. And they brought one father in who had a connection back in the States with somebody in the university. And once the father saw what the kids saw, he realized that the kids were really onto something. And he knew it was strange too. He didn't know what he was looking at, but he knew he wasn't looking at anything normal. And they decided they were going to harvest the goodies and sneak them back across the border and take them to his friend at the university. Well, back then, the border crossings were fairly loose. They weren't as tight. And they were in the process of doing this when the area had a flood, like a flash flood, a mess of an area. They had the only thing that survived were the 2 skulls, the adult skull, the big person's skull, and the little person's skull. And this little person's skull has become what we've known as the Star Child, which LLoyd Pye got a hold of. And it came to Lloyd through family members, but they finally brought it to him because he's a paranormal investigator. He did things like, or he writes about it, let's put it that way. He writes about things like Bigfoot and different, and he's also published books, Everything You Know Is Wrong. And Lloyd started taking this thing around, trying to find out what the heck he had found. He knew it was weird too. And the more the people looked at it, the scarier it got, the less answers they had. I've met Lloyd in a nutshell over real quick for all of you who weren't here last time. He brought the Star Child skull to Tampa, into the Bay Area. And he was on the Kathy Fountain show. And David Summers, who is now here, but had owned a magazine in Australia, was accompanying him because his magazine was following this story. And on the Kathy Fountain show at lunchtime, pops up Lloyd with the Star Child skull. And he's telling the story about it and what's happening and what he's trying to do with it. And I almost fell over dead because I got too warm. And I was like, you gotta be kidding. My father almost had a hemorrhage. He said, Karen, come here and see this. And I was like, oh. So I called the Kathy Fountain show, and they thought I was another flaming nut. There were some strange people that were calling that show, and some that were very serious. And I called, and this person got on and said, well, we're not taking any more questions. I said, no, you don't understand. And so I explained who I was, what I did, and what I had and had found. were 2 more of these things. And they took me seriously. And they said, could you wait till the show's over with and we'll get him on the phone because we're sure he wants to speak to you. And he did. He came on sort of queasy, like, you know, he's got some kind of flaming nut on his hands. And I just laid it out for him. And he said, and used the correct terminology in the whole shot, and told him where mine came from and the fact that I had the whole body. And he was like, whoop. And could I come over and meet him? He was having a lecture over on this side of the next day. He did. And we've taken off together ever since. And so I'm into the star child research, coming from a totally different angle, from the archaeological side to this, and it's melded, and it's been amazing. Again, how many of you are familiar with the star child? Just about everybody, yeah, and the pictures, and those that aren't at all, just like a fast overview. Okay. The star child basically, let me see if there's better, and I'll pass these around for you too. The skull, I don't know if you can see it from here, but I'm going to do a movie too. These are normal human skulls. This is the star child. This is the star child looking this way. If I would turn it up looking this way, the top of his skull and the way the back comes up. The most important thing about these star children, or the gods of Cholula, the back of the head. See that straight? It literally comes this way. And know this, that it is not cradle-boarded, it is not hydrocephalic, it is not man-made or misshapen.
Well, did the Egyptians do that?
18th dynasty did, when you see the longer heads, but that was cradle-boarded.
Okay.
It was done to be very pleasing because this fellow actually started it, Akhenaten, that believed in the one God. And he did it because he believed that his God, Aten, the sun disk, it was sort of imitating God. All right, we don't have any pictures of Aten with that shaped head, but it comes down through writing. Because at Amarna, they destroyed everything that they could get their hands on. This was the heretic. This is the one that screwed up the entire country, wiped out all the priest jobs, threw everybody into turmoil. They tried to destroy everything that they could get his hands on. But the legend, quote, unquote, goes that this was done because he was touched by the gods. He passed this on genetically from the gods. He was part God, and that the gods tended to have a head similar to this. So whether they cradle-boarded their children's heads, Akhenaten was one of his daughters, and I've got a copy of her head and things too that does a round one. But it's more this way. The star child is not. It's straight up, and you'll see it better. I've got a movie to show you today, to bring you more things. So here comes this star child skull. Now, fast overview. There is nothing. El Zippo. Here is the normal skull that was found with the star child. And here's the star child skull. On the back, when you come up, when we have a break, you can come up and peek through all of this stuff. These are basically x-rays and MRIs of normal, the one that was found with them, and the star child. You'll see them on both sides. And you'll know that quick which is who, I guarantee you. This strange skull. The neat thing about the star child is this. They are as advanced beyond us in brain capacity as Neanderthal was back there to Cro-Magnon. So we're at the Neanderthal level, where it's a wholly different hominid. He's got enough brain matter to drop him into another form of hominid. So we'd be Neanderthal, he'd be Cro-Magnon. That much more. There isn't anything about the star child skull which is like any other normal skull, period. The skull is not like your skull, my skull, anybody else's skull. It is half the weight of a normal skull. It is denser. It is formed like ours. It is natural bone, but it's much denser. It's compacted, but lighter. There isn't anything that you could think of on that skull or what would have been on that person's face that would be like mine. The eye sockets are huge. The optic nerve does not connect. Ours would connect basically almost like straight in. Here's connected down here, below. There are no sinus cavities on the star child, or the gods of Cholula, which I'm going to get into in a minute. No sinus cavities. The ears, what we would think of as the ear canal. My ears in most people's ears, also having degrees in art, your ear usually runs from the top of your eyebrow to here. Their ears were down here, almost at the jaw level, very low. Yeah.
But you know, the sinus cavity is just for our tone of our voice. I mean, if you didn't have a sinus cavity, so they must be, they use telepathy evidently.
The sinus cavity
It's for
can
your
do
tone.
more than one thing, but we've got more of them. I mean, you've seen the TV ads with the little arrows that are stuck all over here. And anybody that's ever had a sinus infection, you know what that pressure is. You feel like if you touch up here, things are going to fly in your face. It's terrible. Yeah.
Sort of curious, I don't know if you have any schooling in biology or medicine or anything. Can you happen to know what the purpose of the sinus cavity is for the human?
Yes, it's for the tone, it's for the voice.
I mean,
But
that's the only
it's
thing-
not,
that's the only thing.
well, it's not only tonal, but it's also for an elimination of bodily fluids. Think of mucous membranes, okay? Think of, it's not only tonal, it's more than tonal. It does a lot of things. It is an ear balance. It is a collection of liquids within the body, without getting totally disgusting about this.
Yeah.
Anybody that's ever had a horrible cold knows what gets clogged in those sinus cavities. And everybody knows that if it ever turns color and goes to yellow or to green, get your fanny into a doctor real quick, because now we've got a bacterial infection and you've got to get it cleaned up, period. Everybody has liquids that are going on there. It also helps with the breathing and the balance within the body. But there's a lot of stuff, and it also has to do with some balance. Not only does your middle ear have balance, where your balance is, but this seems to do a lot of balancing too. I'm not an MD, you know, I've got actually a thing with EMS, but not that. But if you want to know what that is all about, there's this little treasure up here on the Star Child that we popped out from the site, and it will break it down in those terms. You want to know, it'll tell you right here. There's the skull from the top. See how it mushrooms out to the sides? Yeah. So you can come up, and in fact, this drawing, a forensic pathologist artist took the Star Child skull and did an artistic rendering of what the person would look like. You've seen them rebuild the skull and what the person would look like, little Miss So-and-so or whatever, and they find the skull and they want to know who it is. Well, you got, see where the ears are placed, how low those little guys are? The nose is minute. It's not even a nose per se. The strangest thing, which I told everybody last time, and when I show you the gods of Cholula, it gets even crazier, because when you look at those photos, you can see what I'm going to talk about. This person, whatever the Star Child was, did not carry his head like I carry my head or you carry your head. Our neck is here, and I've got disability and whatever. This neck is carried, and head is carried this way. So the eyes. And if you've got huger eyes, I guess you can do a lot more. But the head is carried down. It connects to the spine differently than ours. The head is carried this way. Rather unusual. It's everything about this creature is different. Teeth. We went into this last time. Yes, they're dentated. There are teeth in there, but they're different than our teeth. They're in a different number. They have different roots and the shape of them. Why? Don't look at me. I don't have the answers. That's just what they're doing the research on. It's a real shock for somebody from a pure scientific community to walk into something like this and think, what the heck? It makes you open up and start thinking of other possibilities. And the more that science has done the research on the Star Child, the less answers we have in a lot of respects. In a very quick overview, we do know they pulled the DNA from the Star Child skull. They goofed up. Started saying a different way, but they goofed up. They took a piece of bone from the outer surface, and it was done in Sweden, Switzerland. It was done in Europe, all the testing under highly tight laboratory conditions. But they goofed, because what happened is this skull has been handled so much. If you're fortunate, and I can talk to Lloyd, I'm sure Lloyd would come in and talk to this group. Now, he does charge, but I'm sure he'd drop his fees down, and that would be normally would charge other people. He has been here, and I think we've talked to him. And he'll give it to you in finite detail. He was just back from Europe when they were doing the testing, just back from California, and I'll hop into that in a second. But what they did is they took a small piece of bone from the outer surface, unfortunately, would have been handled, everybody that sees the skull and touches it, you can't put it down. It's like, what is this? It's the sutures and the stitches are the way they're supposed to be. They're knit perfectly. I mean, this isn't somebody that got squished, mashed, mangled, hydrocephalic. This is the way this person is supposed to be. Okay. Well, unfortunately, you can transfer a lot of stuff from your hands and oils and whatever to a piece of bone. And when you go to check the DNA, you can pick up the other DNA. You remember the O.J. Simpson trial? Oh, we got these little alleles, the little bars with the little dots. When they did the first testing, they said, this is from a Caucasian Eastern European. Everybody went, what? What they had gotten was the DNA from all the hands. So they had to go back in and they went inside the skull when no one had stuck their little fingers and took samples from there. And they got the mitochondrial DNA. Now there's two kinds of DNA. Everybody knows what DNA is. Okay, but there's two kinds. Mitochondrial DNA tells who the mother is. Nuclear DNA tells who the father is. Then you put those two clumps together and you get another individual. They got the true testing. Now this skull, the Star Child skull, is a real stinker in that the normal protocols don't work when you're pulling DNA. It takes twice as long to pull the DNA from this as it does from a normal human skull. And I'm using those terms because I have no other words to use. They have found out that the mother of the Star Child was a Mesoamerican. Think of it as a native Aztec, Mayan, whatever you want, Indian from Mesoamerica. Fine. Who was the father? They're having a heck of a time. The results were supposed to be in by the 15th of this month. They're still pulling it. It goes into this, like, think of a gel solution bath, and it has to melt a whole bunch of stuff down, and once it's finally melted down, then they start extracting what we think of as these DNA strands and fibers, and it's taking twice as long. They have found a few things that have come up that they don't have answers for yet. They found some DNA, and it's not like garbage DNA from the X-Files or, Raw, whatever. They don't know what they are. They found them, but they're not sure what. So who the father is the big $20 billion question.
So this is a hybrid, huh?
As Lloyd thinks it is, yes. From my standpoint, I don't know what it is. Okay, I'm waiting to see too. It's like, I have no idea. But here's what the legends all say, because this person wasn't here last time. Again, in Mesoamerica, they come down in a written form, they come down in a glyph form, and they come down in an oral form. So we've got three forms. And when they all agree, you're pretty sure you got the right thing going on here. It is stated, and this is where we'll get into the gods of Cholula, my Cholula people, that, okay, the gods, and it was always the flying god, the god that brought them math, that brought them astronomy, and that came from the sky. Okay? The legends go, the gods would come down and they would pick, whether it was the most beautiful female in the village or however romantic you want to get about it, but they would pick a female. And they would honor her with, she would become pregnant with a god's child. Once the child was delivered, that entire village, did you ever see the movie Shogun? Where the whole village is responsible for Richard Chamberlain, and if he doesn't, if it screws up, they're taking out the whole village. Very similar. This child was raised for 5 to 7 years by the entire village, town, whatever you want to call it. And some of their towns were massive, they're as big as New York City. Some were very tiny. But that entire community was responsible for that child's welfare. That child was to learn everything possible and treated as a god or royalty themselves. At the end of 5 to 7 years, supposedly, the gods would come back and take the child and go wherever they went. Now, woe unto that community if something happened to that child. Whoa, because you were leveled. Like Sodom and Gomorrah, you were cleaned off the face of the earth. No trace was left. And Tel, which is the god of fire from that area, looks a lot like Satan, doesn't he? Isn't that a spooky looking thing? Tel, the god of fire. This one's from Veracruz, would melt everything. There would be no trace of your people, your buildings, your anything. Gone. You goof with this child, we'll take you out. It's sort of like Dirty Harry. Make my day. And there were these legends, and these children, the legends appear all over Mesoamerica. This happened repeatedly. But nobody ever found one of the kids. They were the legends of them, and most people thought they were mythological, and they put meanings into them. Well, son of a gun, here comes this kid. And now they're getting answers, and some of the answers make more questions. We also know that the skull, the adult, that was found buried with the child was a female, was a Mesoamerican Indian, but was not the Star Child's mother. And this is the same as what the legends tell. It was taken from the mother and given to the custodian. The custodian usually was a priest or a priestess, highly educated, highly trained, one of the pillars of the community, and it was that person's responsibility to take care of this child. So that fits the legend too. Okay? Wasn't its birth mother, but it was a female. And who is this little person? We don't know. Well, I get into it, for those that weren't here last time, and I'm going to start tying it all together. In 75, I come up with the gods of Cholula. Now, if you're not familiar, when you come up and look at this too, we'll take a break, and then we're going to pop the movie on, and then I'll get back into it again. You will find different sites down here. Cholula, and look at the smaller map, it will show you where it is. Cholula was the ceremonial. It would be like the Vatican is to Catholics. It would be like Mecca is. It was the religious, cultural everything for Mesoamerica, period, to put it in a nutshell. The largest pyramid in Mesoamerica is in Cholula, and it's still covered. It still looks like a mountain. Because when the Spanish came in, they basically said, and pardon the vernacular, that's it, burn all their stuff, throw everything away, and we're going to build a cathedral on the top of that sucker. And that's what they did. They put a humongous, gorgeous Catholic church on the top of the pyramid. Well, when you're standing on the ground level looking up, how many of you have ever seen the Great Pyramid in Egypt? Been there? This is way bigger. This sucker's bigger. The Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico City, a lot of people have been there and seen that. This is bigger. So if you're standing at the base and looking up at the top of what looks like this mountain all covered with garbage, the cathedral looks this big. From ground level, the cathedral looks like it's that big. And it's a monster church. It's like St. Peter's. There's a giant church up there. Then you start to get the perspective of how big this is. Cholula flourished in the classic period of 200 to 900 AD. When the Spanish came in, they killed per day in this one area 14 to 16,000 men per day. Just took the priests, took the people, and I mean, it was and recorded. The Spanish have the records of it. They kept excellent records. Okay, but in Cholula, and for those who weren't here last time, but this is very, very important. You're familiar with a pyramid shape. Okay. Mesoamerican pyramids are not pointed at the top. They're flat. And there's usually an edifice on the top. It's like the Holy of Holies, per se. And there's a picture of one here. In fact, this is the one from Palenque. And they're like a stepped pyramid. Okay? The priests would go inside here and do their things and then come out and whatever. Little teeny tiny steps. Climbing those suckers is horrible. I mean, I've got a fairly good, I'm tall, I'm over 5'9", and I've got to go up on my tippy toes climbing those things up and down. They're very narrow little steps. These were small people. Mayan, Central American people, 5'2" was a big Mesoamerican Indian. Aztec, howsoever, were taller. The bloodthirsty, as I called them last time, the Nazis of their time. When the Aztec came in, they were the bloodthirsty. They were the ones cut out the hearts. They brought all this garbage in. The others were very, very peaceful. Classic was peaceful. Aztec came in, everything broke loose. You had like a Nazi type thing going on. You had ripping hearts out. You had all kinds of stuff. And then everything sort of went this way. Okay. four-sided pyramid, flat at the top. Each side of a pyramid, which I went into last time, has a designation. They don't have my board here. So all right. A little strange looking for a pyramid, but here's a pyramid. You're looking down on it from on top, okay? Let's say this is the front of a pyramid. Every pyramid had a main entrance coming this way. We had climbed up. Like you saw over there, there's the front, there's a right side, a left side, and a back side to a pyramid. It's the best way to do it. The front of the pyramid, the main entrance, when you climbed up to the top of it, in front of it, was always a stele. A carved piece of stone, usually pointed, like Cleopatra's needle. Archaeologists have known since, I can't tell you when, that on each side of the pyramid was a burial place. The main entrance under that stele, if you were to excavate under there, you would find the ruler, the most powerful ruler, the head priest, or the ruler that ruled that area, like the Green Jaguar Prince, or whoever it was, Montezuma, would have been buried under there. To the left side was one thing, to the back side was another. Each was designated for specific burial. To the right side, as you look at the pyramid, was reserved for the gods. Well, do you think they ever found them? No. I mean, they used to dig there like crazy. Of course, there was nothing ever there. So archaeologists said, and they wouldn't even monkey with the right side. Well, surprise, surprise, and Cholula decided, why not? What came out of Cholula were these little guys. And I can pass this around so you can look at it, but get it back up here because when the movie comes on, you'll see. The gods of Cholula. Two of them. One a little bigger, one a little smaller. The legends go, and these guys appeared at about the time the Golden Age came in, 200 to 900 AD. The legends, just like the legends of the god in Palenque. You know, the Arab guy, Von Donigan, Chariots of the Gods, the guy with the... Same thing, says this. They came, the craft they came in, whatever it was, boat, airship, whatever, was busted. They couldn't repair it, they couldn't fix it. They were gods to these people, and they stayed and they lived with them through 4 of their lifetimes, just like the one in Palenque. Now, their lifetimes were that massive back then. 20 years was a pretty long lifetime. People were marrying and having kids at 13 and 14. So a 20, 22-year-old, some of their rulers back there did live to maybe 60 or something, and that was an amazing feat. An amazing feat. But these little people came down, whatever they were, came and lived with them, taught them math, taught them astronomy based on Venus, taught them every kind of culture you can think of. And it flourished. And this is when the giant pyramid is built. This is when all the wonderful stuff starts happening. And then weird stuff starts happening. The legends all say, both in written form and in oral form, that the gods had told the people that more beings like themselves would eventually come and take them back home. Well, more beings did come. But they weren't the good guys, they were the bad guys. Now, they don't describe if the bad guys looked like the good guys. There's no record of that. All we know is the bad guys came. And there was, just like in the classic Bible, a war in heaven between the gods, in the skies.
Between good and evil?
Between these two and the ones that came.
Now, is this the purebred, the aliens? I mean, like the Star Child is a hybrid, is like the purebred?
Those are the guys.
And can you tell the boys and the hybrid?
Yeah, and I'll get into that in just a sec, absolutely. What they are, don't look at me, because I'm coming from a totally different point than you people are. But my mind has expanded greatly, I've got to tell you, flat out. These are the gods. They went to war in heaven with the bad gods. These were killed. One died instantly, and one lingered for 3 days, and then died. The bad gods left. They were buried with full ceremony as befitting a god. And they were this last time. As they come up, more questions are raised than we've got answers for. Here come these little people. Now, in answer to what he's saying, they're about yay tall. Okay? They have the same head structure as the star child. These are fully dentated. These have the full body. When you look at that picture, and you'll see the other ones, you can see the spine, you can see the ribs, you can see the ulna, the radius, you can see tibia, you can see arm bones, leg bones, finger bones. You know, I won't break it. Just, you can see, it's all there to see. Mayans were little people, but built squat, very sturdy little people. And I say little because I'm tall. You know, I've got a cousin 5'2", probably punched me right in the mouth for saying that. But these were very sturdy people. Heavy bone structure, squatter, hard-working, depending what their jobs were, but short down here. But they carried their heads on their necks like we do. Okay? Fine. These little guys, and they also had rather short fingers. Mayans tended to have rather short, stubby little fingers that you would think of stubby. Aztecs, again, whole other group of people. Much taller, much leaner, nasty as they came, but a little bit different bone structure. But nothing like the god in Palenque who was 6'4". So that's a whole other day. I'm going to tie that in. Okay, these little guys are very, very delicate. Whatever these little gods are, they're very delicate. They have extremely long fingers. And if you look closely, you can see them yourself. The finger bones are extremely long. They have very delicate, long fingers. Small. Their rib cage was different, very small, very delicate, formed a different way. The leg bones, the whole thing. They are not, whatever the gods of Cholula are, they were not like anybody living in Central America at that time. And they're not like anybody that I know. And the forensic pathologists look at it and go. So what happens? They get sent off to a forensic pathologist from Mexico City to find out what's going on with these. Because as you look at that picture, and I've got the little black and white one here, you're going to see two holes. If you look at the skulls, you're going to see a hole on the top of the little one, and you're going to see a hole about here on the bigger one. Okay? This is where it gets even nuttier. They thought that when they excavated it or something, you know, maybe somebody had done a little brain surgery on someone and had chopped in and let the little eagles out of the head. I don't know. Wasn't that. The little one actually was like an accident. It had been busted in. The big one, the hole here, the closest I can define it for you because it has rifling attached to it. Are you familiar, how many people are familiar with firing weaponry? You know that when a bullet goes in one way, what it does, and when it comes out, what it does as well. Okay? What you've got in this skull is, the closest thing that we can parallel it to is a bullet hole. It was shot. It's a projectile. Yeah. Whatever shot went out. Now I would think, you know, if there's space guys flying around, they didn't have bullets, they had lasers, they had zippies. I have no idea. But the answer to me is, this guy was shot with a projectile of some kind. We're not a spear. There's rifling involved with this. I mean, forensic pathologists would say, this is a bullet. Well, period. That's what it is. Well, who shot him in 200 AD? We didn't have rifles, guns, weapons in 200 AD. Nobody did. The Chinese might have had gunpowder, but they didn't know what to do with it. They made other stuff out of it. So what is this? Then somebody got the brilliant idea, oh, we'll panic for no reason at all. What it is while they were buried down there, you know, somebody went out and had too much tequila or mezcal and got their guns and were just firing them into the ground. And it shot down into the ground and blew through this one's head and blew out the other way. Wasn't bad at all. They proved that. So now we've got these two gods of Cholula, very different than anything else there. One of them was killed by a projectile. The other one, there's a thing up here, but we don't know about the rest. We know the legends. What are they? I don't know. Who are they? I don't know. I know that they're the gods of Cholula. And for those of you who weren't here last time, if you've been to Mexico, I don't care what site you go to or where. You could be in the boonies, and all of a sudden you're here, psst, and you look around, and somebody's got some kind of little artifact they want to sell you. They come out of the bushes. They'll sell you T-shirts, they'll sell you, I mean, you can find everything from this type of stuff to, you know, the ceramics, to the jade, to whatever. Psst. They're gonna say, well, you know they're copies, but it's fun, but they come out of the woodwork. I mean, and if you buy, God help you, if you buy one thing, there's 7,000 of them around you, and you just move in a mob because everybody wants to buy something. At Cholula, the native people that have been there for forever, and any of the native people that come in, these gods are sacred, period. You do not make a representation of them. You do not hawk them. You do not sell them. You don't even talk about them. When the people walk by, they look the other way. And these are very, very poor people where, 20 cents can feed the family for gosh knows how long. Not done. And when you look at that picture, when they brought them back, it scared the forensic pathologists in Mexico City that they brought them back. It raised more questions than they had answers for. And they displayed them down at the level where they were found. And they built, if you look closely, think of Cinderella's glass casket, heavily leaded glass with thick leading, like you do a stained glass window, and that's what they were put in and displayed in. Why? I don't know, but when they brought them back, that's what they did with them. Lloyd got all excited. He went, oh my gosh, now we can pull DNA like crazy. They have teeth. You can pull DNA from a tooth like that. There's arm bones, leg bones, whatever else. So we made arrangements for people to go down and see if we couldn't get permission to get some DNA pulled on the guys at Cholula. The first guy that went down goofed up. He was a total flake. He was a fellow from Canada. I don't know if he'd gotten into the mezcal that night or what, but he made it to Cholula, and he went to the wrong side of the pyramid. Okay? This banana nose, there is a picture here. Let me come up here. Here are the gods of Cholula. Okay? You know what they look like. They do not look normal. But there is a picture here, which was a priest's burial. And you'll find these heads in like a bowl. Well, the Nuna from Canada went to the wrong side of the pyramid and looked at this and said, those are regular skulls. There's nothing wrong with that because there happened to be a few bones and things. He didn't go to the right side of the pyramid. He went, he took a couple of pictures, he flew back, contacted Lloyd. Lloyd went nuts. Everybody went nuts and said, we sent you all the way down there, we put all this money into it, you went to the wrong side of the pyramid, you like an idiot. So they said, okay, now we gotta go back down there and see what we can do. Well, by the time we got somebody else back down there, they had sealed the guys at Cholula. They sealed them. You can't even see them. You can't get to them, you can't see them. The area is sealed over. Now, whether they're still there in their glass enclosure, whether they've taken them somewhere else, we don't know. But we've tried 16 different avenues to try to go in with the Mexican government to see. I now have I'm hoping a good connection with a friend here who is right on with the guy that's head of the museum and the universities and for that area of Cholula. And he may have the answers for us. So there's more questions out there than we have answers for. Why did they seal them up? Well, where are they? Who took what? No answer. And who did it? Nobody talks. And it just gets stranger and curiouser and curiouser and curiouser. What are they? I don't know. I can tell you the legends. I can give you the stories. I can translate the glyphs. Who are they?
Think the federal government bought them off?
Our government.
Our government? I have found, and boy, if you ever repeat what I was saying, I'm dead man. I go back to Mexico. The Mexican government tends to run like either the good old boy system or the mafia system. And they do have godfathers down there. If you've got powerful connections, you can do whatever you want. If you don't, forget it. There's the haves and the have-nots and a few in-betweens. And if you've got enough power and pull, like the old saying, money makes square wheels turn, you might be able to get some stuff done. Who did it? I do not know. Or what? I will tell you the reverse, and I said this last time. Most people, Mexican or Mesoamericans today, that live, say, in the Yucatan, think of going out towards Merida and Chichen Itza and whatever, they raise a lot of cattle there for beef. Worst beef in the world, like shula. You can't chew it, it's like a hockey puck. But this is what the people do, okay? Unfortunately, the Mexican government, to this day, 2004 for God's sake, if an archaeological site is found on your property, might have been your parents' property back 500 years. You've always been a farmer there, you've always raised cattle, you've always raised whatever you have, birds, who knows. If a site, a good site is found, the Mexican government will come in, take the land, take the property. They not only do not pay you for it, they don't give you any more property either. You could lose half or all of your property. So what do these people down there do? If they find something really unusual on their property, you know what they do? Their whole family and all the people that get together just take it all apart and throw it on somebody else's property. Or, it's true, or if there's a river nearby, they throw it in the river, or they scatter it to the winds. Because they're poor people, they work very hard, they have next to nothing, and they gotta get rid of this. Because then what happens? Then they become beggars on the streets. And there is no, excuse me, I have rights. No, you don't. You're not down there. So it's a catch-22. It's terrible. It's terrible. They were making big money on the black market on archaeological things coming out of it. There are collectors all over the world that will pay through the nose for stuff. And the what I call the good guys and the bad guys are trying to preserve it and keep it, and Mexico is being very tight about their things now. They're trying to keep everything there. There is a neat thing. If you were to go and live in Mexico, and a lot of people from the States retire, like in Cuernavaca, because it costs peanuts to live down there. I mean, for what most people would get on a small Social Security stipend, you could have an entire hacienda, a full staff of servants, cars and everything else, and live like a queen or king down there. Okay? And here's a hairy rule. If you have a home in Mexico, and you go digging around and find some stuff, whatever it is, as long as you're registered with the government, it's not a big thing. You can take it home and display it and keep it there for years. You're just not allowed to take it out of the country or sell it to anybody else. So the more people you know down there, you walk into their houses and you fall over dead. There are some of the most beautiful things you'd ever want to see just sitting all around their houses. And they're not penalized for it because they're registered, the government knows it's there, but they can't take it out. But they can keep it. And there are sites. If you want to go for go to Cozumel for a weekend, or go to Merida for a weekend, there's 3 sites, Sail, Caba, and Labna, which are very close to, say, Chichen Itza. These sites are known for different forms of pottery, very lacy, light, delicate pottery. Some looks like, the shell sign, the scallop shell. One place made pottery that looks like a scallop shell. One made it look like Irish lace. Another did others. There is so much of this pottery laying all over the place there that if you were to go to, you say you went to Chichen and you took a little day tour and you went to Sail, Labna, and Caba. There you put all 3 of them together. Anything that you pick up off the ground you can keep and bring back. And it's allowed, totally allowed. I mean, it's everywhere. In Monte Alba, there's a couple sites where, and in Cholula too. The other thing with Cholula, obsidian, the volcanic black stone that was used to make points and knives and whatever, you'll find that all over the place, and they allow you to take out pieces of that too, no problem. And you can bring that back to the States. It's like pebbles to them. Totally allowed. Totally allowed. So what happened to the gods of Cholula? I don't know. We're waiting for the results on the Star Child. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little quick break so that everybody can get up and hit the potty or whatever. But I'll tell you what's going to happen. I've got a movie that was on the Learning Channel. You'll see LLoyd Pye. It's actually much longer. It's called The Mystery of the Skulls. And it's these strange-shaped skulls from all around the world. But what I'm going to do is I've just honed it in, and I have my projectionist here because I am terrible when it comes to that kind of stuff. Dig it up, I can do. Do that, can't do it. So he's going to run it, and what he's going to do is on the Learning Channel, it's going to be Lloyd's part showing the Star Child up to that time. Let me tell you this, and the people that were here last time, there is a movie available from LLoyd Pye. I'll give you the address. And in fact, if you want to get a hold of him on the internet, it's Lloyd, LLoyd, Pye, P-Y-E, all run together, .com. Okay.
Could you do that again, please?
LLoyd, LLoydPye.com. You can also get to him if you do Lloyd Pye at cox.net. And you'll get to him that quick because it's one of his that most, and please don't give that address out to anybody else. The people in this room can have that. I get to him directly like that on that one. Lloyd Pye at cox.net. He has, when he was in Europe, in England, they did a movie. In fact, they produced it. The British government, the BBC produced it. It's called An Evening with Lloyd Pye. When he went over to do the original Star Child. It's a 2.5-hour movie. It not only explains everything about the Star Child in depth, but other things that will turn you on amazingly. They only had so many of these films made, and he was going to sell them. But what they're trying to do is we've got to raise more money for the Star Child project because there's other things. If you wanted to know how much it costs to go nuclear and DNA on this, you would probably have a heart attack. And we've got to raise another $50,000 very quickly. So what they're doing is he's selling the movie. In fact, this group might want to actually go in and buy. I've talked to Michael about that, about the Evening with Lloyd Pye. What it is for a $100 donation, you get the movie and you get all this other stuff that comes in. Down the road, they may be able to make the movie and you can buy one for maybe $25. But right now, the company that produced it in London is not doing that. Or you can go to the starchildproject.com, all one word, Starchild, STARCHILD, project, PROJECT.com, all one word. And from there you can pop into different sites and all kinds of things on the Star Child. You'll see the pictures of the gods of Cholula and all the other stuff. But we're waiting for the nuclear and DNA to come out to find out who was the father of the Star Child. Because if it comes out the way that a lot of people think, it's going to rock the world.
What do they think?
Let's put it this way, the neurologists, the brain surgeons, the MDs, the PhDs, the ones that are truly into this, the more they look at it, the more berserk they get, because they realize that this is something like they've never seen. One side, Lloyd's side, believes, now I'm coming from what Lloyd is saying, and you'll hear it on here too, that the Star Child is a hybrid between an earth-born mother and a father from elsewhere.
From where?
Somewhere other than Earth.
Mm.
That the gods, the flying gods, that's from somewhere other than Earth. They've asked questions like, well, is this, and I had to, the group last time heard me, because I had to go back and read all these books to refresh myself to know what the heck I was talking about, and the questions you were asking about little grays and this kinds and those kinds and whatever else, so I could talk and not be an idiot to the group of you that know about all this kind of stuff, and I do not. Is it a cross between a gray and a human? No, they do not believe a gray. They do believe, and now this gets sort of fine. You can talk to Lloyd about it. In fact, you can hit him over the internet with it. Not necessarily a gray, but evidently there is another form of being that is not a gray, that fits the physicality of this, that interbreeds with human females and produces offspring that are taken somewhere else and genetically enhanced, engineered, or whatever. That's as close as I can tell you. I'm coming from a totally different end of this. But this is what a lot of people are saying. But all we know is that the God of the Star Child is like nothing else found ever found. Ever. The gods of Cholula are as close to it as possible. It is not hydrocephalic. It is not cradle-boarded. It is not egg-headed. It is not a pumpkin head. It is not some of the ones that you'll see on here.
Let me ask you another question. Based on what the speculation occurring with Star Child DNA research and the mishap down in Mexico and Cholula, anybody who's been involved in this, and there's probably anybody in this room probably has 10 cases that drive you personally crazy. Whenever your lip is on the cup, or coming up with some evidence in the paranormal or in ufology or anything else, it always seems that some clown goes, that is the evidence, and then all of a sudden it disappears. anybody tried to link these to this phenomenon? What does Lloyd think that has actually occurred with the sealing of these samples of the tooth?
As far as the gods of Cholula,
Yeah.
he thinks, he doesn't know. He thinks somehow either the government, some government is in on it. We don't have an answer. I've got an aunt who was close to what was the treasurer of Mexico. She had some property down there to see if she could find a back door into what would be good. Nothing.
You know, I think
So the Star Child is out. The Star Child is here. They've got that skull.
But I wonder if the two are connected, that because there's so much fear, or, I hate to be a conspiratorialist, but, you know, the thinking has got to be there that if there's true critical scientists sitting back saying it's too flaky to be human and human, the DNA, and if the two are known to be linked, there could be,
More scientists in the world at this date and time who have come in contact with the Star Child and have been in direct testing. The thing with the Star Child is it's been kept pure. There have been a lot of concerns and conglomerates out there that want to, oh, we'll give you $10 million, you know, if we get control and we do sell the shirts. And the Star Child has been kept pure. Lloyd lost, I can't tell you how many. I know he had 50,000 in the hole already of his own money, trying to get this stuff done to keep it pure. And that's the way it's remained. So whatever comes out of this final nuclear DNA is going to be interesting, to say the least.
You know,
But that's being controlled. No government has been able to get a hold of it, take it away, disappear it, poof it into the woodwork like the gods of Cholula. There's the pictures. Here they are. I mean, I've got all. And the other thing, if you hadn't seen it, there's when you come up, the gods are over here. Look at them, and then look at the carving of the god. Okay, behind you'll see this. You'll see like a little raised thing in the steel. That's right at the main entrance where you normally go up the pyramid. They brought the carving of the god, which was over the gods. Look at it. It is not the Olmec head, which you're used to. Where is it? In one of these pictures, there's a picture of me with, you know, the big Olmec head, like a 20-foot head. It's not the Olmec head at all. In fact, let me see. Look at that picture of the guy. Now look at these skulls. And it's sort of an eye-opener. What we're going to do next, we'll have a little break. And then on the Learning Channel, I'm going to let Lloyd's thing run so you can see it in full color and hear Lloyd talk. Then I'm going to pop it a totally different way. What I've got here in my hands, if you're familiar with the American Southwest, the Mizuni and the Navajo and the Anasazi and the groups of people that were back there, I'm going to start tying stories together with them and also with the in South America, and with actual pictures and things that we've discovered and found, and the translations. And you will also be able to pick up, I brought sort of novices versions of petroglyphs, because I'll be showing you some pictures, and you'll be able to translate yourself. And then up here later, this is a very basic rock art symbols for the novice. And last time I talked to people about the spiral, and like this symbol, the spiral means that they've had to move and go away. And when they move and go away, then they come to this almost a key design. It means we've established another settlement, and this is where it is. Once the settlement was established, a runner would go back and pop this into the rock. And each one has a very specific meaning, like Kokopelli that's over there. I'm going to bring that all in. But the most intriguing one, which I talked to them about last time, it's a little teeny one up here in the corner. It's called the place of emergence or the beginning. And if you look at the symbol, if you were hovering over the top of the step pyramid and looked down, that's exactly what it looks like. And I'm going to bring in more depth than I did last time about the passageways from what we would think of as Mexico into our Southwest, and the legends of how they came about, the first people before the Anasazi, and then how to translate these petroglyphs and hieroglyphs, and then show you actually pictures of what happened. Yeah.
Nothing's been mentioned, but is there anybody actually out looking for that possibility of the wreck of the vehicle that broke down?
Oh, the only thing we have is that they came, it was busted, and no one has, there is no record of where. Now, the one in Palenque, which I went into last time, you know, Abraham Donegan's Chariot of the Gods, the guy that's buried there, and then his picture's over here and his mask. It came down the Toulon Valise story. Toulon Valise translates two ways. One is from the stars, and the other is from such a far distance away that you couldn't possibly get back. It's a very similar legend, the same way. But the vehicles, no, have never been found. And they weren't described. Were they boats? You know, were they Vikings? Was it a boat? No. They had a word for boat and a symbol for boat, but they didn't use that.
You think somebody could get down there with a Geiger counter and a metal detector and maybe, you know, do a little research?
The area it's in the Cook area. There is so much stuff down there. You have no idea of the vast finds and things that are there. It's amazing. You probably come up with all kinds of stuff. And that, where it would be, I have no idea. But if you want to go take a break for 2 minutes and we come back, then I'll show the picture of Lloyd and then we'll get into Petroglyphs.